Welcome into 5 Wide Fantasy. Today's video, must start players for the last week of the football season. Hopefully for you guys, this isn't the last week of your fantasy season. Hopefully that wrapped up last week, because if you have to start guys in a week like this, that sounds awful. So we'll get to some of the favorite players for you to be including in your lineups on OwnersBox this week. Hopefully you took down a fantasy championship in last week. But let's get to some of these players on OwnersBox. If you guys haven't signed up, that link to go sign up is down below in the description. We're going to give you 2 free entries into our DFS game as well as lightning lineups. And then when you sign up, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $500. Let's get into the slate here. As always, we start at the quarterback spot. I think, again, like I mentioned, getting into this slate, when you look at motivational standpoint of teams that don't have anything to play for, teams that do have something to play for, even teams that I think that are eliminated from the playoffs, those teams can still give you value because there is still motivation for those teams, but there might not be a lot of motivation defensively, which could lead to some more points in these matchups. But you do want to avoid some teams that are in matchups that could change drastically based on results at 1 p.m. Some examples for you guys, if you guys don't know, if I scroll all the way to our 4 o'clock slate, the Cowboys might not have anything to play for at 4 o'clock in terms of seeding. If things go with the Eagles taking care of business, I think that would pretty much all but wrap things up for the Cowboys. And then the same goes for the Chargers, who play at 4 o'clock as well. If the Bengals win, the Chargers will have nothing to play for, and I would anticipate that they'll be sitting most of their guys as they will have the 5th seed locked up. So again, it looks the Eagles are playing at the same time, so less impactful for the Cowboys now that I look at it. But there are games you need to pay attention to. So let's start at the quarterback spot. Honestly, I think there are 2 players that you can really consider starting this week. I'll run through everything here. Jalen Hurts status up in the air. This team's 14-point favorites. I wouldn't be playing Hurts regardless. Justin Fields is not going to be playing. Nathan Peterman's getting the start. Burrow in a good matchup against Baltimore. He's definitely someone you could consider playing this week. Baltimore does have a good front, but their secondary has not been good this year in terms of fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. The biggest problem will be for the Bengals without La'el Collins. How does protection hold up against Baltimore's front? Lamar Jackson status up in the air. Justin Herbert, like I mentioned, we could see Chase Daniel at quarterback. Tua not expected to play. Dak in a match against the Commanders. You know, if they have something to play for, then Dak could be in for the entire game, and Washington isn't the greatest of secondary, so it could be a good matchup for him. Cousins against Chicago, you see the Bears as a really poor defense, but with Nathan Peterman at quarterback, this Minnesota team's not going to have a lot of reasons to play with pace, to score a ton of points. They could get out of Chicago with a really easy victory here with Peterman at quarterback for Chicago with a terrible pass protection. Tom Brady, they say the Bucs are all starting. I mean, I don't know why they would be. They have nothing to play for, so no reason to start Tom Brady in the matchup against Atlanta. Geno Smith is definitely someone you could play. Daniel Jones, I would expect him to sit. Nothing quite yet on that. Russ, the Chargers are a very good defense, but that's a lot of the high-profile guys. Let's just get into who I want to play. Mike White, Miami. I think this Jets team still has plenty to play for here, even though they are eliminated. They do have a Miami team that they can't eliminate with a win. That always seems to play a factor late in the season for motivation for these guys, and this is still a good Jets team. I think Mike White is in for a good game here, and one with high passing volume. This team is going to struggle to run the ball against Miami, and will look to lean on Mike White and his favorite pass catcher, Garrett Wilson, who had 11 targets last week, but only 3 receptions. I love this stack between these two. Definitely one you need to play. The other one I'm going to, as we talk through this, I do think that Geno Smith, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott are good plays, but I do think that Josh Allen is the way to go here. Buffalo still has to win to ensure their seed over Cincinnati. I don't think they'll be able to get the 1 seed. I don't think the Bengals and Bills will play again in that regular season game. So I think it'll go by win percentage, and the Bills will need that win in order to secure the number 1 or the number 2 seed behind the Chiefs. And the stack I'm going to go with is Stephon Diggs. I think Diggs is in a matchup here against New England. He had 22 fantasy points in their previous matchup, and we saw the Bills making Diggs more of a focal point in the offense after some quiet weeks. We saw that early on against Cincinnati in that first quarter, so I like this a lot to get things started. Let's move to running back. Again, since we spent quite a bit, I only have 4,700 left to spend, so I am to be looking at some of these cheaper options, starting with Zach Moss. Moss is the number 1 running back in this Colts offense, and that has been very much what's the word I'm looking for? Confirmed or settled over these past 2 weeks. He's been the only guy really in the backfield. You got to play him in this matchup at 5,300. Definitely someone you should not be skipping through. The other one I really liked as well, I'm trying to remember who it was here. Oh, it was Latavius Murray. Kenneth Gainwell is not a bad play in a really plus matchup for their ground game and one they could run away with. We could see Gainwell get back to getting some touches. Where are you? Latavius Murray. Yeah, Latavius Murray, 5,400. He's got a matchup with the Chargers. Like I mentioned, the Chargers could have nothing to play for in this game, and that could leave opportunity for the Broncos to not only win, but I have the expectation that they'll run the ball well in this game too, even if the Chargers are starting their full lineup in this game, because the Chargers' run defense has not been good this year. Okay, tight end. One thing to pay attention to during this final week is player incentives. If they have a certain number they need to reach in the season to make bonus money, if there's certain standards they need to hold in terms of touchdowns on a season or yards per game, that's something that you can use, especially if you're betting, but also in DFS. One that I know is in need of that is Tyler Higbee. Avery actually let me know about that earlier today. I think Higbee needs about 25 yards to reach a certain incentive. So Higbee is a good start, I think. And he goes against Seattle, who is, I believe, dead last or they're second last against opposing fantasy tight ends. So even better. Matchup is good and an incentive for him to get the ball. And I know Baker Mayfield knows that, no doubt about it. So love Higbee at a pretty decent price. So that leaves us at 4,400 with our final two spots where we look at the two flex positions. So let's just scroll all the way to that price and look at who's around that area. So we'll start here at about 4,200. Let's go. Malcolm Brown, seldom touches. Definitely a decent matchup against Seattle. DeAndre Carter. Again, we talked about what could happen with the Chargers. There's more. Samuel with another quarterback change to Howell, so that leaves things up in the air for sure. Gallup isn't bad. Wow. Okay. Rashid Shaheed. I believe he's gone double-digit fantasy points in 5 straight games, and we're still not giving him a bump. He's got a matchup against Carolina. I mentioned I still think these non-playoff teams have the chance to give fantasy value. We don't know the motivation standpoint from these opposing defenses, especially when it comes to tackling late in the year and kind of protecting their bodies. Give me Shaheed. He's been incredibly explosive for the Saints. So I think he marks a great cheap flex play that can be explosive for you too. And then Jaylen Warren. Yeah, Jaylen Warren. Matchup against Cleveland's run defense, which is one of the worst in the NFL. Warren is still, usually we saw Tomlin with an offense that is very much just your RB1 is the entire offense. He's a workhorse and no one else involved. Warren has earned his spot. Warren is going to get opportunities in this matchup against the Browns. Of course, the Steelers need this win to keep their playoff hopes alive. I mean, credit to Mike Tomlin. The fact this team has playoff hopes is incredible, what he's done as a coach. So I like getting Warren in a really plus matchup, even as the RB2. So I love this team we've built. Just going through it again, Mike White and Garrett Wilson stack. And then we've got a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs stack. And then we're going to the running back spot. We've got 3 running backs between our 2 running back spots in the flex, all in plus matchups. Zach Moss against Houston, Latavius Murray against Denver, and then Jaylen Warren, like I mentioned, against the Cleveland Browns. Tyler Higbee in at the tight end spot against Seattle, who's a terrible tight end defense. And then we have also Higbee with the incentive for a bonus here to get, I believe, 25 yards. And then Rashid Shaheed in that final flex spot to give us some upside too. So this fills out the entire lineup, leaves us with $100 left. Fills things out wonderfully here for the 25K Sunday Splash contest on OwnersBox. If you guys haven't signed up, it's the best way to support us and support the channel is by signing up to play on our platform. Again, that link is down below in the description. Promo codes, we've got 2 of them for you, DFS 10 and Lightning 10 for free entries, and a 100% deposit match up to $500. So go sign up. That link is down below. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.